So we're going to discuss about Playwright test. When I say Playwright test, try to understand what I'm saying is I'm trying to, okay, Playwright test is a library for sure. There's a library called Playwright test, which we are using all the way in Playwright, which is giving us all the things from Playwright. But there is a terminology called Playwright test, right? Which also means your test runner, right? Okay, which also means a test runner. And when I say test runner, right, it has the capability of even writing the test cases, right? So it has its own mechanism of writing a test case, which we have discussed earlier. So what you will do is you will create a test file. So in our case, let's say we are giving example, right? Example spec.ts, right? Any name which you feel like you can give. Okay. Once you have it, you will need to write a test case by saying test. So when you write test, it means you're writing one test case one. Okay. If you write another test, it's another test case. Correct. If you compare this to your WebDriver IO, right, where we were using Jasmine as a testing framework, right? So Jasmine was a third-party thing, right, inside WebDriver IO, which WebDriver IO are using, consuming, created a wrapper on it, and then provided its own stuff on it. And there we were using describe and it. So describe was a way to group the test cases, and inside this, right, you were writing test cases using it block. So every it was your one test case. Here, what is happening here is they are not Playwright is not using anything from the third party. It is using its own testing framework here. So they have designed it and by themselves, and this is how they write it: test and test. So these are individual test cases. Okay, this difference should be very clear. Okay, now let's go to this here section here. Let me create a branch for today. Git checkout -b day 6. A branch name day 6 already exists. Why did I create a branch today? Oh, I did. Okay, fine. We are on day 6. Yeah. Okay, great. So let me design a file from the beginning. Okay, I'm going to design a file. Let's say dummy.spec.ts. Okay, so this is an empty file. Let's see how do you write test cases. To write test cases, you need to start with test, right? You need to start with test. But if you see, right, this is not globally available. You will have to see this is also a function, right, coming from some library. Which library? Playwright test. So you will have to import this to consume in this file. There is no test method defined somewhere, right? It has to come from somewhere. It is not globally available in the global scope. It was not globally injected by Playwright into the global scope of JavaScript, right? So what you have to do is you will have to import it. How to import it? You will write an import statement test from @Playwright test. Okay, and if you see expected now, it is able to now understand like okay, test means something. So if you start writing, see here. This is the format, right, in which you can write a test case. Let us break it down so that we understand how to write a test case. So there's a test thing, right, which you'll have to do. Now this testing over here, right, is like a function you're calling from a Playwright library, right? So you will have to adhere to the signature of the method. Now, what is the signature which you have to provide? It's like you're calling a test or function, right, inside Playwright. How does the signature look like? It has, I think, it has two different overloaded versions. If you go here, right, again, all the documentation. I keep showing you the documentation so that you can also go back and refer, right? So if you see this Playwright test, these are the methods, right, which we are going to discuss about or which you should be knowing, right? The most important one is the to start with is the test method, right? If you see using test, you declare a test, okay? And what is the signature it has to follow? It has to follow either this or this, right? So let us try to break it down. Let me open a new board. It will require more space. Okay, so what you will do is to write test, and what is the signature it follow? It follows two approaches, but let me write just, there is called title. The first argument is title. You give the name to your test case, right? So it is like a string, right? It has to be a string variable, like a string type. Second is I think it is called annotations, or what? It is called details. Okay. The second thing is details. We'll talk about what is details. And the third component, or the third thing, right, which you have to provide to this function is body. Now, title is very straightforward. It's a string value. You have to just say double quotes, and you can say, okay, my test case name, test case one, login. Let's say whatever you feel like, right? You can give the second parameter, right? First of all, this is optional. If you want to give it, give. Otherwise, you can ignore it. So if you give, so the overloaded version of the test is title and body. Okay, so it at least needs two things: title and body. You can ignore the details part if you wanted to, right? And if you ignore, it knows that you're writing in this way. But let's say that we are providing details, right? So what can you provide in details? So again, the documentation is here. If you see this, where is that? Where is that? Here. Okay, tags. Where is the full normal? Yeah, here, right? So title is the string, right? Details. It's an object. Okay, it's an object. So how do you write it? How do you write an object? You write an object by doing this part. Okay, by doing this part. Now inside this object, right? So let me just put a comma. What is the body? If you okay, let us first focus on details, right? What is details? So it's a JavaScript object, and what is the format of the object has to be? It has to be this. Okay, it will contain a tag, like a tagging, right? You can tag your test cases. Okay, it's a smoke test, it's a regression test, right? Or any name you want to give. So you can provide that information in this options thing, right? So you can provide your tag thing to it. So you can provide a tag, let's say, okay, at the rate smoke. Okay, it's a smoke test case. Okay, so you can, so there is a parameter inside this object which is tag. So you can make use of it if you are interested. One is this thing. Apart from it, there is an object, right? There is an object. So it could be a string or an array of string, right? So you could write it this way, or you could write it this way also, right? You could provide multiple tags to a single test case. Second thing is annotations, object and array objects, right? So annotation is again, and so let me write. There is another field called annotations, right? If you are if again, this is could be an array of objects. This is one object, this is second object, right? You can keep on doing this, or you could write simply like this. Okay, this is one version, this thing, or just simply an object here. What do you provide in annotations? You can provide some more metadata. See, if you understand, this is a metadata, right, about a test case. These are called metadata, so it has no impact on your execution thing. It's just you're providing the metadata to your test case. Similarly, this part is also for providing metadata, but more in depth knowledge. I mean, thing if you want to provide, you can provide a type, right? So like what they are saying is that there is an annotation object. You can provide a type and a description to it, whatever you feel like. You will not be using it. It's just that it exists, so you should be knowing. So one is type, and second is the description. Okay, so it is just that if this is not sufficing your need, right, and you wanted to give more information about your test case, you can use this annotation part, right? Because I think this will be used in your reporting part once it completes, right? Once this will be helpful in your reporting part. It will be more descriptive. So you can see, right? It's a string optional annotation for description. For example, an issue URL, right? Annotation again, these are all string values, right? String values. So these are string and these are string. So you can provide a string accordingly. But this is how the details object looks like, and that's why this is optional. This is not mandatory for the functioning of the test. Right, now coming to this important part, which is the most important part in the test, body. So let's go to the body. How does body look like? First of all, if you see, right, this was a string, this is an object. What is a body? Body is a function. Okay, so this was a string, this is an object, this is a function. Let's read about it. You see, body is a function. Now, function which can accept two inputs. Okay, a function which can accept two inputs. One is a fixture, which we talked about earlier, right? And second is a object, right, of TestInfo, right? I told you yesterday, right? There are things here, right? TestInfo. It's an object. Okay. We'll today we'll discuss all of this in depth. So we'll see the functioning of it. Where is it? Yeah. Tech fixtures and TestInfo, right? What is fixtures? You can just open it up. You can open this also. Fixtures, right? Fixtures. We discussed about it, right? Playwright is based on the concept of test fixtures. You can provide test fixtures, which is again an object, right? So what you have to do is, how do you provide body, right? Let me start writing it. So you will give you. We are going to use arrow functions, right? So how do you write arrow functions? You write it like this, right? You write it like this. So this body part will be looking like this, okay? And then you have to close your function of test, right? So you are closing the function of test by doing this, okay? So this part is this here. So you have one parameter title, details is here, right? You could write like, and body looks like this, which looks like this part, okay? This thing, and then you're closing your test, right? You're closing it, and then you can go and start your another test like this, right? And you can keep on writing it. Now let's focus on this body part. How does the body look like? I told you it's a function, right? And it's a function. It can accept two parameters. So this is the place where the parameters needs to be accepted. The first parameter which you can accept here is called fixture, and second is called test info, right? This is optional. You can provide and not provide. This is up to you. And this fixture, again, fixture is a concept in Playwright, I told you, right, which helps you, which gives you some ready-made environment setup, right, for your test case to run. Okay, we have discussed in depth about it. So if you have any doubts around it, please take that session. So this is what it is, right? Test info is an object in Playwright, and it provides you the information about the currently running test case. What all configuration has been applied on this test case, what is the project information applied to it, what are the other parameters which can help you with the metadata of the test case. So all of that information is stored in this object by Playwright, and it gives you the access to this object through this, right? Now how do you write this? Okay, how do you write this? You write it like this. This is your these brackets. For fixtures, right, it will always be in a destructuring mode. So fixture is like an object. Let me write. Let's say fixture looks like this. Let's say, right, fixtures look like this. You have page thing to it. You have browser, and there is some value. Let's say, right, browser. You have browser context, and you have hundreds of other things here, right? Let's say you have hundreds of other things here, right? Now what is happening is you cannot use this fixture as is. So this is not allowed. How will you do it? You will have to tell out of this object which one do you want. Okay, which one do you want? So what you will do is we will use the concept of destructuring. Destructuring means that what you do is you use this parenthesis, and this signifies that whatever input is coming to this, which is the fixtures, right, which is the entire object which contains 100 different attributes, I need only specific ones from them, right? So this is a way to extract only the required fields from the entire object. Again, it's a concept of JavaScript, which we discussed in our JavaScript session, right? So here, right, fixtures, there are hundreds of them. I need only page, let's say. So I will just write it like this, and I am done. So this parameter is written like this, right? Now there is another field which is optional, which is up to you whether you want to use it or not, because this will give you the metadata about a test case. This is something which will give you the environment for execution, right? So this is very important. When you say page, right, it means it is going to give you a new instance of the browser, okay, and it will be opening a new tab on it where you can open the URL and do your automation, right? So this is the most important thing, right, the fixture part. But if you want more metadata information, you can use this test info object as is. You can give any name which you feel like. I'm just writing test info. I could write Akhil also, right? It's a name of the variable. But but who is injecting these powers? These thing and this thing? Playwright is injecting, right, on the runtime. So you know that page is something, right? The browser instance and a tab on it. Who is injecting? Playwright is injecting. Test info, right? Who is injecting? Playwright is injecting, right, on the runtime. And then what you have is you have given the parameters. You will open the arrow. You will open the body here, and you can use these things here, page.goto. This will open the URL of your test case, right? Let's say I want to read about the configuration which has been applied to this test case. You can just go and print console.log TestInfo. It will print all the configuration information about my test case. Okay, is it clear till now? How do you write? What is the signature of the test case, and what do we mean by all these things? Let me also show you by writing it. Let's say test here, right? You saw there is a 2-3 arguments, but you got 0, right? You gave only 0 title in this. Let me write. So I've written test here. I will write test case 1, whatever I feel like I am typing, login, let's say, right? This is the first parameter which I provide in the body. Now let me provide the second parameter. If you see, right, second parameter is the body part, right? Okay, I want to give the details to it. So what I will do is I'll open these braces. So I am giving what? Let us see. I am using this option, okay? This details part, the body part. Since I'm giving an object, so it comes to know, okay, this is the second parameter which is going to be about details. Let's say tags, tag, right? You see tag, and I will give the value as, okay, why it is complaining? Just a second. Am I not using the right format? I think I am. Let's see. Tag, not this one. Playwright test. Tags. Yeah, this is how it's to give, right? So we are providing the same thing. Okay, maybe I have not completed. That's why. I will say tag as @smoke. Okay. Object literally may only specify unknown properties and tag does not exist. Okay, I will have to import it, I believe. Then let's see. No tag. Where is tag? Test is here. Tag is this part. Okay, it does should not come. Alternatively, you can include tags and test style. Note that each tag must start with @ symbol, right? Okay, let's try. I think it will go away afterwards. It is not into this part, right? Tag. Okay, so we are providing this tag information. So this is about details part. I mean that middle section, right? The details thing. So you can provide tag. What more you can provide? You can provide this annotation thing, right? You can provide this annotation object. You will say, let me bring it to the next line. Let us separate it out in a separate line. So this is tag annotation, right? You can see it is giving you the annotation, and here this is also an object. If you wanted to give, right, you can give type and description. Let me just copy this as well. Whatever you want to give, right, you can just give here. These are all accepting string values only, right? What is saying? Object literal may only specify known properties and tag does not exist in type. This tag undefined. No, it should not be an issue. I think it runtime it will go away. Type and description. Again, you can give anything, right? So I want to give. I want to tell. Okay, this is a test. And description, I can give a URL. I can give anything which I feel like. I will say, okay, dummy test to test login. Okay, whatever I feel like. So this is like a metadata you're giving about this test case. So let us bring it here. And now the third thing, which is the most important part, which is the body. Okay, the body. How do you do it? Since, okay, so how does the body look like? This is the third parameter. You will write arrow function like this, right? And you're done. So you can see, right, the error went away. It was not complete. That's why it was giving an error. Okay, so this is a body function. Now inside the body, right, what you have to provide, the first thing here is the fixtures. Okay, the fixtures part. So this has to accept fixtures, and fixtures has to be in a destructuring mode. So you will open this up, and what do I want to use? I want to use page. So if you write page, it will come. You want to use something else? You want to use browser? Okay, let's use browser. Okay, right, and more things, right? There are hundreds of things over there. Now you might, but let us look at one. Okay, I'll talk about that later. But this is the fixture part, okay, which you're providing. The second input which you can give, right? So fixture part is done. Second is the test info, right? You can see the test info. Just write any name. Let's say test info only. just to make things similar. Now this is done. Now if you see, right, what you will do, what you will be doing under these parentheses, you will be writing a test case. You want to open a URL, you will be writing it here. You want to write a full end-to-end test case. Yes, everything has to go under these boundaries. Okay, under these boundaries, and things will be done. Now when we are dealing with the browser, right, we understand that operations are async in nature, right? Async in nature. Now if you want, now this will have that asynchronous behavior to it, right, where you will don't know how when things will be completed, and everything would be throwing a promise, right? So how do we handle all of this? We use async await. So what we will do is we will put async here, right? And whatever you want to write, which will be working on the browser asynchronously, you will have to write await for it, right? So let's say I want to open a page. I will say page dot go to, and I will provide the URL. So the URL would be, let's say, https podcast.in. And great. So we are making use of this fixture over here, right? Great. Now what about test info? If you see this, right, test info is an object. Is an object which has a lot of parameters within it, and it is giving you a lot of metadata about this test case which you're currently running, which is this test case, right? So it gives you all the metadata about this test case. Let me show you what I mean. Right, test info dot, you see there are so many methods which you have. You can access the configuration, right? The configuration which has been applied on this test case through the config property. You can understand the duration of it. It can give you the duration, expected status. You can give you the file name, and there are so many things, right? Output directory, what is my output directory, what is the parallel index of the worker which I'm working, which I'm going to discuss very, right? Status of it, tags being used, right? There are title of the test case, right? So these are all giving you the metadata, right, about the test case. So if you see, right, if you want to see the entire list, and if you want to understand, this is the one which you should be looking at. Test info, this one. Okay, this is the one, test info. So these are the methods, right, which you are seeing over there, and everything is explained here, right? Everything is explained here. We will understand them, right, as and when time comes. But currently, my understanding is that you should be knowing about how to write a test, and you should not be worried, because when I will be writing test cases, when I will start writing test cases from tomorrow, you should not be worried. Okay, why actually writing in this way? Okay, so this should be this you should be able to understand all of this, how things work. Just for the context, right, let me print the configuration which has been applied on this test case. How do you get it? You get it through config. There's a property called config, and it will give you the runtime configurations, right, which has been applied on this test case. Where is those configuration residing? They are residing in multiple places. It could reside under this configuration file, right? This is the configuration file, right? Based on what you define here, a test case will run accordingly. Let me give an example, like which browser are you running on, right? So that is a configuration. That's a part of configuration, right? So if you want to access all the detail, you can just print. You can access it through the config parameter here. Where is it went, right? Config parameter here, right? Let me try to print it. Console.log, like this. Now understand this part, right? Test info config, right? Here, right? It's a property, so I'm printing. I am not going to write await here, right? And you understand this perfectly, I believe, because this is not a synchronous. This is not a async operation, right? I'm not interacting with the browser. I'm interacting. This is a synchronous operation, so there is no need for you to write await. So await we write only for the things, right, which are asynchronous in nature. Correct. Let us run this and see how it works. So we are using all this. We will go to Playwright, and there was a parameter which we could use, which is, I believe, test match, right? Let us write it. So we wanted to run only this dummy spec, right, out of these three test cases. See, our test directory is written like this, right? You can see test folder. Out of this test directory, when this project will run, I only wanted to run this file, dummy spec, right? So I will write test/dummy spec. So this is how you can understand. Globally, I have said run all the test cases, but for this project, I'm saying run only this test case, right? So once things will run, right? At in the end, okay, in the end, once this configuration will be applied on the test case, right? What you will see, this test case name being executed, right? The configuration which has been applied. Okay, let us run this and see whether it works or not. So we are here. How do we run test case? Anyone? What do we write?
npx
Npx.
play playwright
Playwright. Yes.
test
Yeah.
that yeah.
That's it, right? If you want it to be, let's say you were having multiple projects here, right? Multiple projects, and you wanted to run only one of them. Let's say this one, right? So you could also write slash project equals to a name of this project, which is this one, right? But again, we have only one project, so there is no need. Again, it is just a way if you wanted to run things, let's say test only on the Chrome browser. You can specify projects here, right? So let's, okay, I set control C, I set control S here. Will it work? Okay, no. No test found. Oh my god. Why it said no test found? There is this dot slash test, but let me run it again. Why will it say no test found? Okay, great. Am I doing something wrong? What am I writing here? Test spec.ts. No, it should not behave this way. Okay. Let me do one thing as of now. I'm saying dummy spec.ts. Okay, let us write dummy.asterisk here. Let's see whether it is able to find it or not. Okay, I'm doing something wrong here. Okay, let me just comment this out and do one thing. Let us do what? Let me just take this part and put it here. Yes, move it. And we have only dummy spec, right? And what we do is we go to the config file and let's run it. So we have only one test file as of now, right? I'll show you, right, what format to go there. But let's just not deviate from the topic. We wanted to run the test case. There is some minor mistake which I'm doing over there, which I'll fix. So you can see, right, it is able to find the test case. It is saying we're running one test using one browser. It has opened up the browser, right? That is the only thing which I was doing, right? I was just hitting the URL. Okay. And to open the report, right, you can see it by typing it, right? And it will open it up. But let me show you the output of it. You see, there something got printed here, right? Why? Because what we typed here was, we typed here print the config, right, of the test info. What does this print? It is printing you the resolved configuration which has been applied on this test case. If you see here, this entire thing, right, this entire object here, right, global tear down, one passed. Okay, now this is a problem with this part, what it is printing. Okay, reference one. This is the project, right, which got applied. It is printing under this output. So I mean, what I want you to understand from here is, if you see, right, this is printing the configuration information, right, and you can access it through this test info part. Okay, test info part. Now combining the discussion, right, which we had yesterday and what we know today, now let me draw that complete picture, right? So anyone who was not available yesterday, right, they might have a difficulty in understanding this, but I will try to I'll try to explain, right? See here. Untitled mirror. Here, right? Now, yesterday we understood, right, that there are three levels. One is the global level, second is the project level, and third is the test level. Correct? The global level, you specify things under your Playwright config file. playwright conf.ts, right? Here you are defining your configuration file, right, under this object, right, under this entire object, which is this file, which is this file here, right? This is this file. And if you look at this file, it has multiple sections as we discussed. One is this section, which is your general section, right, which is specified here. Second section which you have is a use section, which is meant for only browser and browser context, right? So which is this part. And third is your project section, right? Project section, which gives you the power to provide configuration at the project level, right? So the general part here, right, the general section is something which you provide globally, right, which is applicable for the entire execution and applicable on all the projects. Now if you want to override some properties for a particular project, what you can do is you can write project section here, and you can create projects here, right? You can create a project, and every project is a object in itself. So by default this is applied here also, until unless you override it by yourself. Okay, unless and until you override it. The third, right? So this is how it is. And similarly, there is a section called use section, right? So even the use part can be overridden here, right? So everything can be overridden. Now the third, so this part is your project level, this part is your global level, right? And test level, right? For the test level, right? For the test level, what can you do at max? You can set the parameters of the use properties inside the test. So this will become the test level scope. And to do it, what you will do is, to do it, you will do what? You will go to your test case. Now I'm showing you, right, how to specify the information at test level. What you will do is, you will come up. If you see, let us change the value, right? Let us change some values. You have a use section here, right? What are you applying here? You are applying, okay, base URL, right? Let us tweak this. So base URL is this here, right? In the use part. So this is a part of global section, correct? Right, Kiran, Anand? I think you guys are getting this, right?
Yes.
This
Yes.
is the part of global. Since you were available, I'm asking you only.
Yes. Yes.
Tejashwari, I hope you are also trying to understand the part, right?
Yes, yes. I was
Okay.
there actually.
Okay, you were there, great. Or I hope, right, you would have already looked in the session. Okay, so if
No,
you,
I didn't get that time, but I will see.
okay, no worries. So this is your global part, right? So let me change the URL of it. Let me make it https youtube.com. Okay, so I'm providing the base URL in the use section of this. Okay, I also have a, so this is the global level setting, right? Now if I want to override it inside the project for this, right, I can come here, and inside this use section, right, this is the use part of it. I will do what? I can write base URL this. You can see there is a property here which I have, and I will override it, and I will say https. Let's say I will say I write it what over there. I write it Udemy. Yeah, I will YouTube. I will write Udemy here, right? Let's say udemy.com. Okay. Now you can see, right? This was a setting provided at the project level. Sorry, at the global level. This is a setting specifically for this Chrome, right? For this Chrome. Okay, great. And what I can also do is for this project level, right? Now I also have a way to change the setting for a particular test case, for a particular test file, right? By saying test dot use. Okay, so test also has a property called use, where you can override the values. So what you will do is, use here, and you can change the property. So what I will do is, I will say base URL, and I will do what? I will say https what test.in. So these are three different URLs, right? And now, what is the use of base URL? Base URL helps you to not, so that you can avoid writing this URL again and again, because once you're working on an application, right, the base URL will remain same. So it's like a central place where you want to change it. But you can see, because we have three levels of scoping which gets applied, right? So accordingly, you can change it. So you can change it here, you can change it here, or the finest level is this one, test level, which I am now changing for test.in. Now I want to open this URL, right? What I will do is, instead of writing entire thing, I will do what? I will just say slash. Let me just check the signature of goto also. What does goto expects? Goto expects us to provide a string option, okay? A string value. The string value. So let's provide this slash. and it will do what? It will since I'm providing slash and not the entire thing, it will go and check the base URL, whatever it is, right? It will take it up and provide slash to it, and that would be hitting. So I hope with this example, you will be able to understand the difference of the scope. Let us see, right, whether things works or not. Let us move it up. Let me just delete this. I want to open a new terminal, clean one. npx playwright test. Okay, running one test using one worker. Okay, let's see. You see, it opened which one? Pod test one, right? It was saying pod test.in. Although it did not wait for it to load and it got completed, but the URL which was hitting was pod test.in. Okay, were you able to see or not? Or it was too quick?
Too quick.
Okay, no worries. Let me do one thing then. Let us run in a debug mode. Okay, so we'll run in a debug mode. I'll just debug this test. So this is running. This is starting the workers and all. Now see, right, which is the URL? Pod test, right? This is the browser. You can see.
Yeah.
Right. So the which one took effect? The local level, right? The most local level, which is what?
Local level.
The test level, right? And this property got set. And this is just one property. You could set hundreds of different properties. You can change it at all different levels and control your execution accordingly. Okay. Right. So let us close this. We'll just run it out and we are done. Okay. We are done. Okay. And this is the, okay, this will not print all the values. Now let me run everything, right? And let us see this test info now, right? What it will print. Let me run it now.
Okay,
Yeah, please.
Let's again showcase the test level change that you did.
I just did this part. There's a method on test which is called use, and using this you can change the values which
Right.
you can provide, which you can mention in the use thing, right?
Okay.
Not the other information, right? Okay, you can only change this part. The
Use.
values which can be placed under the use section.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so those things can be overridden. So base URL is one such thing,
Mm.
and there are other things. Okay,
Mm.
so I hope we are good with this all this, right? Now, okay, let us understand some terminologies, okay, which I was trying to explain yesterday, which we did not. I think there was a confusion. So let us try it again, right? So if you see, right, you provide a configuration here. So there is a config one. Let me just write config one. Then you provide some configuration at this level, config 2, and you change some config at here, right? Config 3, right? Now, in the end, so these are all the I think the compile time configuration. Let's say, right? You are mentioning it. It is not which is getting applied. You don't know the final thing, right? The final configuration which will get applied by looking into all these configurations and seeing like what are you applying. So I will say the final configuration which gets applied to a test case, let's say let's call it as resolved configuration. Okay, resolved configuration, it will be a combination of this understanding like what have you applied, where did you change what, and it will be a final list of configuration, correct? Now this this resolved configuration, right, is understood, right? Or you can, or there's a terminology in Playwright which it use. It calls this resolved configuration as full config. Okay, this is called as full config. Similarly, if you want it to like inside every configuration, right? So we have a project section also, right? So they are maintaining a separate project, separate object for that also. So if you see, right, at the global level also, right, you were maintaining a project. So this is called as, let's say, project 1, right? Here, right? And project here, I mean, project, right? So this is the project level. Okay, not this, sorry. This one, this is project level, right? So this is the project information which you have, project part, correct? And again, this again, this project part also, right? The properties which are mentioned, right, were also a part of this configuration, correct? So if you wanted to access, right, at the runtime, which is the project properties which has been really applied in the test case? Again, I will call it as resolved project, and you can access them, right? Or there's a terminology in Playwright which it uses for the resolved part is called full project. Okay, so it is just the terminology being used. Okay, but they call, whenever you see full config and full project, it means it is the resolved configuration or the resolved project properties which has been applied on the test case. Okay, on the test case. Now it is just the terminology, right? It, you will not find an object with this name. No, it's just a terminology. It is just a way to differentiate between the resolved configurations and the applied configurations. So applied configurations are these, right, which you can access or which you can also maintain by writing these objects, test config. So if you wanted to access things, right, there's an object called test config which you can use to access all the configurations of which has been applied to the test case, right? Similarly, there is a concept called test project, which is really an object in Playwright, which provides you the access to all the project related information, right? Similarly, there is something called test options, which provides you the information about the use part, this part, right? The use part. You can access it through this test options. If you wanted to access the information about the metadata about the test case, we saw there is an object called TestInfo, right? And again, you can do a dot and you can access a lot of things. Okay, there is test config, test project, test options, test info, and there was one more. Where is it? Test info, test options, test project, and test config, right? Okay, these are the four ones, right? These are the four important ones. And full config and full project is just a way to tell you that these are resolved ones, right? These are resolved ones. That's it. We do not, you can see, right? Please see, right? To see the format of Playwright configuration file, please see test config, right? You can see this is just giving you the information about the test config only. It's just a terminology, right? Now what I wanted to also tell you here is, so what you should be knowing, right? You should be at least knowing that these are the four important objects which you have in Playwright, which can really help you to access some properties or even set some properties, right, at the test level. Okay, at the test level. These are the things. These three things, right, can help you with some metadata information, and you can set, I mean, all the four things. Now you know how to use test info because you are applying it over here, right, inside this. So you get access to test info through this, right? Test info, right? The access to test info, you get it through this part, right, which you're applying in your test case as a third, as an argument in the body part. So there's a fixture and there's a test info, and you can say test info dot, and you get a lot of things. What all things? You get these things, all these things, right? You get it through test info. You can say test info, you can get a title. So all the methods which you can get access, the metadata part is all here, right? So which is one thing. So you can just say test info, and you're providing it from this test part, the body part, right? You will say, let's say page here, and then test info, and this test info. So what Playwright will do is Playwright will inject that test info object to this variable, and now you can just say test info dot, and you will get access to all these methods here. Okay, I hope this is clear, right? Now, other thing, how do you access this part, and this part? Now what happens here is, there is no way, right, you can access to this directly inside a test case. How do you access it? You can access it through test info only. So what you will do is, you will say test info dot, there is a property here called config. This config refers to your test config. So this gives you all the configurations, right, which is resolved. Okay, this does not give this one, this gives you this one, test full config, right? But if you understand, these are similar thing, right? It is just the resolved one. Okay, the resolved one which is making the test case run. So if you say test info.config, what you're getting? You're getting full config, which is in a sense, this is test config only, right? So you get it through this. If you want access to the project, this part, what you will say is test info.project, and you will get what? You will get access to this part, which is your resolved project, right? If you want access to test options, I think test options, let me just check. Test options you can get directly. Let's see. You can access test info. Let's see options. Do we have options here? If you see, right, config is here, and you have project. Where is the options part? Okay, I think, okay, options part. Okay, I got it. Okay. See, these two things, right, are like you wanted to access things, right? So these are more like reading the information, right? Reading the information at the config and the project level in your test case. Test option, right? If you want to work on test options or set some values, right, of a test options, what you will do is you will use test.use, and here, right, you will provide all the informations, right, which you want to set for the use part. So you will have to do something like, so if you do this, you will be able to access this, and you can change the parameters of the use part for a particular test case. Okay, so what is the most important part? Most important part is, first of all, you should understand how to write a test case and what is the nomenclature of it, the signature of it. It takes three inputs: title, detail, and body. Title is a string, detail is an object which can have two variables, tag and annotation, right? This is like, again, metadata information. The third thing is the body, which is the more important part. Body is a function, right? So I've written an arrow function. You can see this is the parameter body, and you arrow function and the braces, right? Here you will write your code for your test case, and first input here, right, will be a fixture, and second is an optional thing, which is test info. If you need it, you will provide. If you don't need it, you will not provide. And you can only access test info if you have provided this. Okay. Now, how do you provide test fixtures? You provide it in a destructuring mode like this. You will place the braces and mention the fixtures which you are interested to get. So I was interested in page part, so I wrote page, right? So my fixture part is done. I wanted the access to test info, so provide test info here, and then these arrow function, then braces, and you will write it like this. Okay. Now, so using test info, you can get access to your configuration and the project part, right? If you are interested in, just say test info.config. You will get access to the resolved configuration. If you are interested in getting the access to the project part, just say project. Okay. So you will get access to this. Now, the third thing, if you want access to the options part, not access, if you wanted to change the value of the use part, right, you will say what? You will use test.use outside the test case, right? So whatever you specify, right, will get applied to all your test cases inside that file, right? So this is a way which is providing you a test level configuration, right? This use part. But remember, this using this, you can only apply on the browser and the browser context, right? So use part is only used for those things. Correct. See, it can be a lot of information, right, for you, but I'm sure as we go ahead, right, things will start making a lot of sense. Now, if you see this, right, I was saying testinfo.config. I can do it. Console.log testinfo dot project, right? So this will give you all the properties set for this, specifically for this project, right? Again, the resolved configuration, right? Why the resolved configuration? It could be because, see here, okay, I was showing you this, right? Let me show you this, right? So let's print it out. Project level, let's say global level, and let us see if we have some other access also. Console.log, right? Test info dot. So annotations. If you wanted the access to annotations, right? What are the annotations? This annotation, right, which you have mentioned. If you want access to it, you can just access it through testinfo.annotations. It will give you access to what you have mentioned here. If you have not specified, it will be blank. Okay. Config, right? We discussed about config, column and all. You can ignore duration. I think it will give you the duration if you wanted to print, right, how much time it took to run over it. Errors, you can ignore. Expected status, you can set if you wanted to. We'll talk about it later. output directory path, right? If you wanted to check what is the output directory path, you can just access it through it. Or project part, right? So if you want to access to project, you are getting it from there. Snapshot status, okay, tags, right? If you want access to tags, what tags have been applied? This is the tag, smoke one, right? So it will print you that. Okay. What else? Test ID, ignore it. Timeout title, right? Title is the test case name which you have specified here. So this will be printed through it. Again, this is more on the metadata about a test case, and it could be helpful if you are, let's say, debugging a test case, right? And you want some information. Now, there are two important things which I want you to understand here, which are more about the workers part, right? There is a property called worker index, and there is another property called parallel index. Okay. Now, these two things, right, are something specific for a worker, right? And worker is the one, like a process which has been started by Playwright, which is really executing a test case. Okay, let us go back. Since we are discussing this, I just wanted to cover it. See this part. So what happens here is the workers which are started. Let's say you have three test files, right? Three test files: test file 1, test file 2, test file 3, right? So, and let's say you have not defined and everything is running parallelly. What Playwright will do is it will start a worker for every process, for every file, worker 1, worker 2, worker 3, right? And what all test cases are running, it will run. Now, what will happen here is under this worker, right? So there are three workers involved, right? Now, to distinguish, right? So what Playwright does is it gives a unique IDs, right, to these workers. Okay, to these workers. Now, what will happen here is, let's say this is test case 1, this is test case 2, this is test case 3, test case 4, test case 5, test case 6, right? Now what happens here is by default every test file receives one worker process. Okay, and depending on what is your underlying infra, so according to it the number of workers will be started. Let's say we wanted 3 and 3 have started. Okay, 3 have started. So what Playwright will do is Playwright will assign a unique ID to it, right? And again, the combination of the worker ID, the ID of the workers is this way. It provides every worker two things. Okay, two things. It provides a worker index to it, which will start from 0 value. So let's say it assigned 0 to it, 1 to it, and 2 to it. Okay, 0, 1, 2, right? And it also maintains like how many parallel index are running, right? Which is your total number of workers which can run at max in a particular system. So currently it is 3, right? Currently they are running 3 workers. So what this parallel index will have, like it also maintains that information for this worker over here. So like you are running 3 things in parallel, right? 3 things in parallel. So I mean, and again the index starts from 0 only, 0. So the parallel, so you have 3 threads running parallelly, 0, 1, 2. So it tells, right, at which index this is running. It is telling you like what should I say? This is worker index 0, and okay, I think I'll have to be more descriptive about it. But what I want to tell you, right, the range of it, right, the range of this value, will be from 0 to this part, right, 0 to 2. Okay, and every worker, right, will receive a worker index and a parallel index. Let me just tell you, right, let me just show you this information. But what my really the point here is that for every worker, right, for every worker it maintains the worker index, it maintains a parallel index, and there are a couple of more information which it provides to every worker, right? And if you are interested in accessing them, right, what you have to do is there is an object here, right, called WorkerInfo. Okay, there's a object called WorkerInfo, right, which contains 4 things within it: config, parallel index, project, and worker index, right? So all these 4 things are a part of this object, right, worker info. But the point here is that this worker info, right, is a subset of test info. You already have the access to test info, right? So just understand this way: test info has all the information about your test case metadata, Okay, and whatever attributes are required to access it, it will have it. Plus, it has access to worker info also. So worker info is already a part of test info, right? And but understand what does worker info provides? It provides you four things. The two things which we already discussed: config and the project. So these two are coming from the worker info part. And the third thing is the worker index. And the fourth thing is the project index. Right? So these four things which are provided inside the test info are coming from where? Are coming from worker info. Right? Right? And whatever else is being provided right inside test info is really your test info object attributes, right? But these four are coming from this. But since this is a part of test info, it's a subset of it. You can access it in test info by just pressing dot. We have already accessed config and project. Let me show you these two parts also. So what you can do is test info dot. If you write, you will say worker index. You see what does it print? See here, the unique index of the worker process that is running the test. When a worker is restarted, the new worker process gets a unique worker index. Okay, we'll see this part, right? Worker index, right? This is one thing. You also get one more information, which is console.log test info dot parallel index, right? If you see this, right, the index of the worker between 0 and workers minus 1. So total number of workers minus 1, because indexing starts from 0, right? So since I'm running 3 test cases, let's say, right, it will have it will have three, it can have 3 index values, 0, 1 and 2, right? So that is what it's saying. It is guaranteed that workers running at the same time have a different parallel index. When a worker is restarted, for example, after a failure, the new worker process has the same parallel index. Okay, this is more on parallelization and how the concept is maintained, right? Okay, I think I'll have to have a separate session, but I will discuss it once we discuss things in depth about parallelization. Okay, but what I want you to realize is that you can access this information through this test info part, right? And every worker, right, will have this information, a worker index and a parallel index, and combining these two together, right, they will have a unique value for every worker. Okay, for every worker. So what will happen here is, so every worker here, right, has two information. It has a worker index and it also has a parallel index to it. So this will have it, this will have it, and this will have it, right? How? Okay, in a normal flow, how things will look like? It will look like this. This worker 1 will get 0 worker index and parallel index is 0. This worker will get worker index as 1. Worker index is 1 and parallel index is 1. This worker will get 2 and 2. Okay, we will understand about more of this, right, when this value will change and all, maybe once we discuss more on the parallelization part. But as of now, I think this information is sufficient for us to understand that every worker has two information, worker index and parallel index. Okay, and you can access them through test info part. So test info has this worker info inside this. Now if you look at this documentation here, right, full config, we understood this is the resolved configuration of this test config. Let me just draw these things for the last time. Let me just delete the board. Delete. Okay, let's start this. Here, right? See, now I will write everything, right? So let me draw a comparison. Full config, full project. These are the resolved value, right? Resolved value for a test case, for a particular test case, right? At the runtime. Resolved values at runtime for our test case, right? For a test case. Okay. These are not objects. Okay. There is no object with this name. It is just a terminology. But what are the actual objects which are in place? One is called TestConfig, which is an actual object, right? And if you use this, this gives you the access to all the configuration values which you have set through the configuration file. There is something called TestProject. You will get access to all the project attributes which I have said through this test project. There is something called TestInfo, which you inject in every test case based on your need, right? So you just have to mention the name of it, and Playwright will have the responsibility to inject this object into a test case, and this will help you with all the metadata information of a test case. These two things can only be accessed through this only, right? There is no way to directly access them. If you want to access config, you will say testinfo.config, and it will help you to access this, right? Which is indeed this part. Okay. If you want access to testinfo.project, you are accessing this, which is indeed this part. Okay. Three things: TestInfo, TestProject, TestConfig. What are the other two things? Test options. Test options, right? You can access through test.use. Okay. And there is the last thing called WorkerInfo. WorkerInfo is an object, right, which has four things within it, which gives you the access to this config, right? This project, worker index, and parallel index. So these four things, right, are something which is specific to every worker, which will be running the test case, right? But this is like a subset of worker info, right? So let me draw it. So it's a subset of test info. So you can't access worker info directly. If you again want to access it, you will access to test info only by putting a dot, and you will get config. This is this one. You get dot project, you get this one. If you wanted to access the worker index, parallel index, you can just put a dot and you will be able to access it. And there are some properties available on test info. So what you need to understand: test config, test project, test info, test options, and worker info. 5 things. Okay. But since the documentation is not very clear about it, and it might create some problems, so I'm trying my best to explain you this part. Okay. And I hope it will make sense. And you already know in the config file, there are 3 things which you have to deal with. One is the basic configuration, the global one. If you want the project level, you will start the project section, which is an array of objects. And the third thing, if you wanted to access the use part, right? Use part is applied in the global level also. You can apply in the project level also. And you can also apply it at the test case level by using test.use, which is this part. Okay. So 3 levels for the use: this one, and this one. And project, you can specify here the global values of the configuration which gets applied to every test case is applied here. Okay, great. Any questions till now? I know this is too much, but I hope, right, some things are making sense.
Yes, making sense. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Let's just complete our test discussion. I'll again go to my Playwright test. Right, we discussed about how to write a test case, right? So this is the nomenclature of it, and you can write it like this, right? There are other things here, right, which you can write. Let us throw some light on it. Okay. We have some hooks. Okay, we have some hooks in Playwright. There are 4 hooks. Okay, there are 4 hooks which are applied, and these are very easy, right? One is called before all. Okay. So before all means, as the name says, right, what you can do is, for every test file, right? So the scoping of the before all is every test file, right? So you can have 2 test files, let's say test files, right? Let me take it there. Before all declares a before all hook that is executed once per worker process before all test. Okay, one worker process before all test. And you know, every test file will receive its own worker process, right? Its own worker process. So let's say we have 2 test files, and you have to test case 1, test case 2, test case 1, test case 2, right? And what is happening here is, and you know that if you have these 2 files, what Playwright will do is, it will do what? It will assign 2 worker process to it, worker 1, worker 2, let's say, right? Now, if you have set before L, right? If you are providing you this hook here, and you are mentioning some steps here, right? Okay, go and delete this user, go and add this, right? What will happen is, this particular thing, right, will get executed for every worker, right? Executed once per worker, right? Per worker, right? And you know that one worker by default runs all the test cases in a test file. So in a way, if you have 2 test cases there, right, and you have a before all section, this will be executed only once, right? And then test case 1 will be executed, and then test case 2 will be executed. Correct. Similarly, there's the concept of after all. You can create after all here, right? And what will happen here is it will only execute once per worker node. Once worker, right? One worker. So if this is running, so the sequence would be, first of all, it will run the before all, then it will run test case 1, test case 2, and then after all will run. It's like a tier down thing, right? Maybe you want to clear some objects, maybe you wanted to clean some history and all that, right? Whatever you want to do, you can do it in the after all. This is like a setup steps. If you want to set up something, right, before running the execution, you can do it here. So before all and after all, right? And you can, I mean, for okay, the right terminology, it runs once per worker. Okay, per worker. Okay, great. There is something called before and after. Now, as the name says, before and after, let me just check, right? After each and before each, sorry. After each and before each. As the name says, right? If you have it, let's say I have before each, right? Mentioned somewhere. What it will do is it will run per test case. Before every test case, right? It will get executed, right? So if you wanted to run some code before starting a new test case every time, you can just write it here under this. But understand the scope of these before each and all, right? Okay, okay. That is something which I'll have to check. If you say this before each, that is executed before each test when called in the scope for a test case. Okay. Okay. I should show you, then only I think it will make sense. Okay, but okay, for today, right? Let me just write it here, right? You have 4 hooks: before all, after all, before each, and after each, right? These are 4 hooks which you can write through test. So if you want to access it, you will say test dot before all, test dot after all, test dot before each, test dot after each, right? These are the 4 different hooks. There are 2 more hooks which you can apply, which you apply at the configuration level, right? Which is global thing, right? If you remember, I told that about it yesterday. Here, right, in the define config, let's say, do you have it here in the use section? Let's see, global setup, right? You see global setup. So if you wish, like, right, you can provide you can create a file, a script which you wanted to run only once per entire execution, right? If you wanted it to run only once, right, you should specify that file name over here, and this will do what? It will make sure that it runs once only. What you can do it for? Maybe you wanted to spin up some environment, right? Maybe you wanted to start Selenium bridge. Maybe, I mean, this is not relevant in this case, but maybe something else, right? You want to do.
No?
Seeing some connection
I
issue.
think that is.
Akhil's side. I'm audible, right, Kiran?
Yes, Sunny. I also thought the same.
Yeah.
I think network is disconnected.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay, he's back.
Yeah, sorry, my network issue. Yeah, what I was saying. So there is a global setup and global teardown, right? Okay, one thing I'm now in doubt is about one thing. Let me just clarify that to Copilot. I hope my understanding is right. Yeah, Kiran, please.
I
I'm
think
not
like
saying
we
much.
are discussing about the pictures. So a custom picture can be a global level hook as well, right?
Custom fixtures. Okay, we have not discussed about custom fixtures, but those, no, see, once you define a fixture, right, you will have to import it, right, to be used somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
right? So it depends, right? Even in global setup, when
Right.
you will doing what? You will be creating a file. You will be creating a file and giving the access to that file to this here, right? And inside that file,
Yes.
you will be writing a test. And when you write a test, that is where you define the fixtures to be consumed. Getting it?
Right. Right.
So it's not that they are by default injected into your test case.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on your needs. If you want it, you can inject it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got.
So
Yes.
that is how it works. What I was telling you, yeah, I was asking one question to Copilot. Let us ask. Uh, I think before all has a scope per test file. Okay. So what I mean is, okay, in Playwright, just let me just check. In Playwright, if we define before all hook in one test file and not others, will it run for, yeah, Kiran, please, will it run for other,
Mm, I guess it will run for the test in the same file.
right, in the same file only, right? That is what,
Yes.
but okay, I got confused because in case of Selenium, right, the behavior is different, right? When we say before all, it runs for before
Yes.
all the test cases. So that was
Yeah.
the confusion, right? But okay, now I understood. Okay, here. Okay, right. So okay, let me now draw the entire picture of hooks also, right? Let me just clean this up very quickly. Uh, mm, See, there is too much to understand, right? And every tool has different ways of functioning, but we can't help about it. We just, the only thing we can do is just to understand it and understand like how it works. Okay, here, right? Let me now try to provide you the hook life cycle. Okay, hook life cycle. How does it work? You have a global setup. Okay, now this will run only once per entire execution. Okay, so please remember this. So if you have such a need where you want to run only the thing only once per entire flow, you should do this part, global setup. And similarly, if you wanted to tear down, right, or maybe let's say once you're done with all the execution, you want to clean up something, you should be mentioning under this part only once per entire execution, but in the end, right, once everything is has been done, in end and it beginning, right, in beginning, right, and you would specify these two things through config file. In the config file, you can set up these two, this one and this one. Now, after this, right, what Playwright says is that let's say you have two test files, test file one, and test file two, and inside this you have two test case one, test case two, test case three, test case four, and you wrote what it says is, let's say what you can do is, see how what see try to understand the concept what Playwright is suggesting you. So Playwright is saying try to create a test file, right? Because the test file by default runs in one worker only, right? In one worker only. So right, and workers are the ones which runs in parallel, right? So W1 and W2 will run in parallel. So if W1 is working test case 1, right, parallelly W2 would be executing test case 3, right? Right, but these two are running in sequence by default. So what they are suggesting is write those test cases in a file which you feel are in continuation of the previous test case. Okay, something like this, right? Or let's say those are ideologically a part of the test file, right? So you can group your test cases accordingly. Now what they're saying is, since you can have multiple test cases in a test file, right, and there could be certain things which you would only want to run only once for all the test case which are part of that file. So where do you should place it? There is a hook called before all, right? So all such thing you should mention here, right? So I will create a before all section. So what will happen is, before running this worker, right, before giving the access this worker to run this test case, this worker will first of all run this before all part. Okay, and it will only run once per worker, right? Per worker, I mean once per worker, right? So this is the worker which is running this, right? So this will be executed only once, right? Okay, in a test file, irrespective of how many test cases you have, it will only run once. Similarly, after all, right? But understand, this before all, right, will only run for this test file, not for this test file. It will not run for this test file. Okay. Now you can have a separate before all for this file, right? Before all and after all, if you wanted to. So these will run only for this test file. Getting it? Now what they are saying is, let's say for every test case, let's say there is a some step which you wanted to run every time. Let's say you wanted to log into the application, right, before running the test case. Instead of mentioning those steps in these test cases again and again, do one thing: create a before all here, right? Before each, right? And this will run per test case, right? And similarly, you have after each, sorry. So if you look at this concept here, right, how things will be: first of all, this setup will run. Okay. Then let's say there are two files which are running, right? What will happen here is, these two files are running. So this is being executed by worker 1 and worker 2 is executing this file, right? So let's say there is a before all section here also, before all 1, before all, after all, before 2. So this will do what? It will create before all, it will execute this one, right? And in the end, it will run this also, after all 2, right? Now what will happen here is, you have a before each section. So before running the test case, it will run before each, which is mentioned in this file, and then it will run the test case, and then after each. So this is done. One test case is completed. Then you have another test case. So before each will run again. Then test case 2, and then after each. Right? And similarly here, right? If you have a before each here, okay, if you don't have before each here, right, it will not pick this one, right? No. It will, the scope of work is this file only, right? Whatever you have inside this, accordingly only it will work. So if you have a before each here, you will use it, otherwise not. So after running before all, right, it will run to before each, test case 3, then after each, then it will, this set is done, then it will again run before each, test case 4, and after each. Okay, this is how things works in hooks, and these are the only hooks you have to deal with. It does not have a nexus of hooks, right, like compared to Selenium and WebDriver IO. These are the only hooks which you need to be worried about. Okay, now since you know that before all, right, is like before all is something, right, which will run per worker. So maybe if you wanted to do something at a worker level for a file, you should mention all of that here. If you want to do something specific at every test case level, you should mention it here. And if you wanted to set up some environment and clean it up and all that, right, you should do it in this file. Okay, so according to your need, you will use the hooks, but this is the sequence of hooks which it follows. I hope, right, this is clear.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So before and if you look at the nomenclature of it, right, this is very similar, right? There is no change. You will say just test dot after all, and the signature of this method, right, looks similar to the other thing, right? Here, where it went. Where is the signature part? Okay, it accepts. You can see, right? It accepts title and hook functions, right? So it does not accept the details component. Here, this is the one, right? So if you want to write after all, right, what you can do is go to your test case, test but after all. Okay, after all, and you can see what you can specify is this fixtures part and this test info. Yes, Anant.
Akhil, I have a question on that. This test, this annotation needs to be verified, needs to be written into the test file itself. Not
yes,
in
this hooks, right?
Base class or something like, yeah, these hooks, yeah.
Yeah, these are need to be written here only.
This needs to be written. So for every specific test case, we will be writing their individual hooks. Test
per
class.
every file, right?
Right.
So this is a file. This is a file which contains your test cases, if you wanted to run something which should run only once per entire test file, you should mention where in a before all section.
Hmm.
Right? So you will write test dot before all,
Yeah.
right? And this is how you will get access to it. So before all, you can see these are the two parameters which you can accept. It
Mhm.
accepts one row arguments. One is this test type, and I mean all this and the test info part.
Okay. And
Right.
if I have a need that I want to run at the suit level, entire suit level. So
When you say suit, what do you mean?
uh, let's say some driver
Entire before running any test case,
for
any
running
file.
some initializations or something kind of that
Right. So what you should do is you should go and place it under this global part.
global setup part.
Right.
Okay.
So what do you specify here? You give the path to your file. So what you will do is you will create a file somewhere. Let's say here only, right? You will create a file called global spec.ts, right?
Hmm.
Right. And what you will do is you will write a test here again.
Mhm.
Okay. Whatever test you want to write. And what you will do is you will give the path of this file over here. I think how do you provide it? You say let us check how do you provide this. Global setup. Yes, you can give the file name like this, right? Global setup, and it will run the test case, right? And within the test case, you can specify all the steps which you want to do with the file, with all that. Okay, getting it? See,
Okay.
I have not shown you the execution of this. We
Okay.
will see this once we get into the framework, right? But
Mhm.
try to understand like what is the concept here, right? But to answer your query, this is where that thing will go.
This is where configs.ts is where it will go.
Right. The something which is meant for the entire execution, right? It will go here, right?
Got it.
And you have to create a file and you will have to give the access, the path to that file here. Okay.
Okay.
So where were we? I was explaining you about this, right? Before all, right? So again, if you see that, right? Before all also has the every time I have to clean this just a second. I did not check the link which you shared, Kiran, but is it a board which can help? I mean,
Yes,
something
I was
better than
watching a video on YouTube. The
this? Okay.
board seems very easy to use, so I shared it.
Yeah, I will check it. I will check it. Although
Yes,
I was using something else before this, it was very messy. So I reached out to this. At least it does not give any
that
uh,
adds.
the data edge and all that, right? So it saves some focus.
Yeah, I was
But
watching the Linux videos and I got your
yeah,
point. No,
so that is where it throws all of that.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So what I was saying, yeah. So we were discussing about this part, right? I wanted to see these are the four hooks. After all, after each, before all, and before each. If you want to access them, you will have to access them through this test object only, right? Test before all. Let's write. Now, before all, if you wanted to look again, this is a function. This is a function, right? And you need to understand what all parameters you can provide. You can provide two parameters. One is title, and second is the that part, right? Which is the fixtures and this thing before all hook functions or title functions like this, right? Hook function or title. So these are two options. Title does people do not provide, so this is like an optional field. If you provide, great. If you don't provide, okay, fine. And you can provide hook functions here. It says, right? What does hook function mean? After all, okay. So what all you feel like, right? You can specify here, right? Hook functions. Although it's not a good example to give here, you can
It's like
actually
if you
write.
want
If you
to
see this, right?
log
This
in or
this is the one. This is the one, and this is similar to what you were providing in the or in the test part also, right? The same signature. So if you remember, right, if you have to write a test, how are you writing? You were providing a title, you were providing a detail object, and then the body part. What does this body part meant? It meant this. It is a function. It is a function which it's a function where you can provide two inputs. One is the fixtures, and second is the test info. Correct. In case of before all, what you're providing, you're saying title and this body part. Let me write body only. Body. Right. So body means what? You can provide this part here. Okay. See here. Fixtures test info, right? So you can provide this hook function that takes one or two arguments, which is this one. but this is, they're just naming this function as hook function. That's it, nothing else, right? It's the same information. So whatever you can access it in a normal test, you can access here also. Okay. Similarly for the other things also, right? After all also looks like this. You can provide a title if you wish like, and you can provide the body to it. Similarly in before each and after each, before each and after each, right? You can provide all of this. Let us do one exercise. Okay, let us do one thing. Let us, since we are on this, let us use this. What I will do is, let us remove this file. I don't want to have some confusion. Move to recycle bin. Okay, okay. As of now, let's move it to the side. Sorry, delete. What I will do is, let us create. So this is one test case, right, which is opening the URL, which is opening the URL. What I will do is, let us print it if I wanted to. Let me create one more test case. Test. So this is, let's say, test case 1. This is test case 2. Test case 2. Test case 2. And let it be this one. I'm not going to provide any details. I'm just will be providing directly the objects, the function word, this part. Okay, here I will provide, I wanted the access to the page fixture, which I got access to, and I will also use TestInfo, or I can just ignore TestInfo. I don't need. I need just page object. So what I will do is, I will say, I will say, await. I have not used async, right? Async await, and I will say page dot go to, and we will hit, let's say, let me just change this part. I will say https youtube.com. Okay, let's say I'm providing this value, and that's it. Now these are the two test cases which I have, and let me just copy the entire file. Copy this, and let's have it here in a new, let's paste it here, and rename this to another file. We're just trying to understand how does the hooks works, right? What is the flow of execution? This is dummy 2, and in the dummy 2, right, let me just say test case 3 and test case 4, and here in this URL I will hit my URL here, and in this particular test case I will hit, let's say, udemy. udemy.com. Okay, so now we have 4 test cases spread across 2 files, test file 1 and test file 2, right? So this file over here, right, has, let me rename this also. test file 1 and test file 2. Rename this to test file 2. Okay, so we have 2 test files. Within the first test file, we have test case 1, test case 2. Let me just arrange it accordingly. So we have test case 1 and test case 2 here, right? Test case 1, test case 2. We have test file 2, where we have test case 3 and test case 4, like this. Okay. Now what I will do is, in this test file, let me create a hook. Okay, I'm going to create a hook. Let's say test dot before all. Okay. Now whatever you want to do, whether you wanted to work something on the browser, if you want, you can get access to the fixtures. But let's say I have no such intention. I just wanted to understand the flow of it. So what I will do is, I will just say this part, right? This is the functional, that function part, right? If I want, I can provide fixtures here, right? And I can access test info here. I don't need any of this. Okay, I don't need any of this. So I'll just leave it like this, and I will just print console.log, and I will say running before all in which file? Test file 1. Okay, so let's see how many times this will get printed, and this will give us the indication whether it is working or not. Let us create after all now. After all, right? Again, the same thing. I'll just say running after all in test file 1, right? This is test file 1, and we will have test dot before each, and we'll print console.log running before each. Okay, let me see. Can I get access to test? Not here. I will have to put a comma. I will have to provide this object like this, and I will have to say TestInfo. TestInfo running before each, for each in test file one for test case. Let us see. Will I get access to it or not? TestInfo dot title. Okay, and this is a property, I believe. This is a property, so it should get printed. Let's see. We'll see, right, whether it prints or not. But at least we should see this line printed twice. This is before each, and we should get after each also. After each. Okay, running after each in test file for this test case. Okay, so we got all this. Let me just copy this as a. Yeah, please, Kiran.
I think we are using async before the function.
Where?
After before each, we are creating a function. So before that, we can write async.
No, see, this is, tell me, this is a synchronous operation or asynchronous operation?
This is a synchronous one.
It's a synchronous operation, right? So why would you need async?
Okay.
Async is not mandatory, right? It is only needed if you are dealing with the asynchronous operations.
Okay.
I'm not dealing with it, so this is not required.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. One revision. JavaScript is a synchronous language or asynchronous language?
It's a synchronous language.
Synchronous language, right? So by default, the
Yes.
nature of JavaScript, it runs things in sequence, right?
Yes.
And it has no problem with this because it's a synchronous operation. If it
Mhm.
was asynchronous, that is where the problem comes, and we will have to wait for it by providing async await,
Yes.
right? Okay, so we are good with this. Let me just copy them as is and provide in the other file, which is test file 2. We will place it here and we'll say in test file 2, in test file 2, in test file 2, and where is the before all? In test file 2. Okay, let me try to do that global thing also. Let me get a file here. If I can create, I have not used it earlier actually, but let us see if I can write it here. Global, global setup. Okay, .ts. Okay, global setup.ts. And again, you can, I think you can also mention in the format of a function and just call that function if you wanted to. You can do all of that. But okay, we will see, right? I'll try to create a file. Let me just create one more file, global teardown. Global teardown.ts. Okay, so we have these two files which are doing nothing as of now, which is blank, and I'm not using them also. Let us first use this one. Why it is test results, right? Terminal. Let's create a new instance of PowerShell. Delete the previous one. So we have two files, and just one last thing. Okay, let me remove this. We have we are running it. We have tests. You have said test, right? Yeah. Okay, great. Let's say npx playwright test. Let's see what it does. As per my expectation, right? For test file 1, we should have 2 workers started, right? Okay. Am I using fully parallel 2? Okay, my bad. Sorry. Fully parallel should be false. It started all 4. If you can see, right, it started 4 worker process. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Because fully parallel is true, and it will do all of the execution and complete. Now here the behavior would be different. Let's see. It's complete, right? Okay. If you see the output, you what will you see here? Okay, let me not print all this information. This takes away all the part from what we really wanted to understand. Just one thing. Let me just comment all this. But I would like to print this information. Test info dot this, which is for which test case, right? So sorry, just a second. Test info dot title. Yeah, please, Anand.
Akhil, until when do we plan to continue the session?
Just 5 minutes more. Just 5 minutes more. I just want to
Okay.
show this part. Okay, just 5 minutes more. Test info dot title, test info dot worker index, parallel index, and let me just copy this information in the other test case. Which is the other test case here? Okay, I have not passed it here. Test info, and the other test file is this one. Test file here, right? I want to comment this part. So this is the information which I need, and in this test case also I need the same thing. I need to provide test info. You can see, right, without me providing test info, it does not know what test info is, right? So this is important if you want to access it. Okay, and the last thing is I should set this to false. Okay, let's clean this up, get a new terminal and run it and see the behavior. And see the behavior, npx playwright test. You can see, right, this time 2 workers started. Last time 4 workers started, right? Let's let it complete the execution. You will see only 2 workers, 2 browsers getting started at a time. Last time it was running 4 browsers all in parallel. All 4 test cases were running in parallel. Done. So, okay. I wanted to clarify, right? This will clarify a lot of things. The worker index and parallel index also, and this information also. Let's see this. So everything is done, right? Let us see the flow. Let us just understand the flow. If you go up, see, running before all in test file 1, because what happened was worker 1 started and it was assigned test file 1, worker 2 started who was assigned test file 2, and both of them first of all ran before all section, right? So this got executed once here, right? You can see test file 1 and this is getting printed from test file 2 section. Just a second. Okay, right? So this is test file 1. So before all ran only once for this file. Then you can see, right, before each section of test file 1 was started for test case 1, right? And before each section for test file 2 started for test case 3, right? Because that is what is written. These test case got printed here, right? These test case got printed here. Okay, running after each, right? You can see for, okay, see here, before each for test file 1 for this test case. So this got executed before each section, then the test case got executed, and then the after each section got executed, correct? So that thing got completed. Now you can see the before, it is running the before each section for the second test case, then the test case was executed, and then the after each section will get executed here, right? This part. And in the meanwhile, you can also see this is the before each section of this test case 3 of test file 2, and this is the after each section of it. So, and within this got completed, right? And then before each section of this, and then after was executed. Everything was done, then after all started executing. You can see after all got executed for test file 1 only once per file, and you can see after all for test file 2, right? Only once, right? So this is how things are executing, right? Is it clear or you have some confusion around it?
Clear to me.
Okay, this is clear, right? Okay. Just one thing. I will run it once more just to bring some clarity. One more time. Just bear with me for 2 or more minutes. Test info and parallel index. Sorry, dollar. Oh, this part. Title. Copy this, paste it here, save it, get here, and just remove all this, paste it here, and remove it and paste it here. Okay. Okay, and right. See, things are running in parallel, so the logs are seen like up and down, but I hope it will make sense. Just one last time, and takes Playwright test. Okay. See, we are running this way, right? These two files. So how you should see it? The log should look like this. For test file 1, it should run before all, right? Once. After before all, right? I'll let it run before all. It will run before all, and after it will go and run before each. Then it will run test case 1. Then after each, then it will run before each and test case 2. Then after each, and then once it is done, it should run after all, right? So this is for test file 1. Parallelly, what is happening is test file 2 is also running, right? And test file 2 will also do the same thing, but it will run a before all, which is mentioned in this file, then before each, then test case 3, which is a part of it, then after each, then it will run before each again, then test file 4, then after each, and then after all. Okay, this is how it runs. And just to show you the logs, see here. Okay, did it run? Right, it ran. See here, before all and test file 1, right? Then before each section for this test case, test case 1, right? This is the before each, then this is the test case which got executed, then after each got completed, right? So again, since logs are up and down, so it might not be very clear, but this is how it is running, right? Then you can see parallelly, because worker 2 started for test file 2, it ran the before all section only once. It started before each section, then it completed after each section of this over here, right? Right, this is how things are running. Okay, I hope this is now clear, right? And if you would see, before all ran and after all ran only once per worker per entire file, right? Anand, is it clear now?
Yes.
Okay, one last thing which I want everyone to focus is this part. See here, you see this 1 1 and 0 0, right? This is for every test case I was mentioning, like which worker is running this, right? And what is the the parallel index also. So if you would see, right, test case 1 in this test file 1, right, was given the worker index is 0, right, and the parallel index was 0. So test case 1 of the test case of that file, right, ran with this index position, and the test case 2 of that file was also running with the same index, worker index and parallel index, right? And the test file 2 was given there, the worker index was given, the index is 1. Total number of workers were running 2 only, right? So the parallel index is also 1 over there, right? So you can see the first test case in that file received this index position of the worker, and the second test case of this, right, also received the same thing. Because why? Because the same worker is running the test case. Now, how this could be helpful? It could be helpful for you if you wanted to understand like which worker received which test case, right? So worker 1 of test file 1 did 2 executions, test case 1 and test case 2. Worker 2, which was assigned to test file 2, ran 2 test cases, test case 3 and test case 4. And this is what it depicts, right? This might not look, this might not be of use to you as of now, but once you enable logging in Playwright, and once you have the logs, over there it will print the logs worker wise, right? So there you will see information like this, 1 1 0 0 and all that. So there, this information would be handy. Okay, we have not seen logger part, so we are not understanding it, but this is what it will help with. Okay, and let's stop here, right? Let's stop here. But again, what we learned today, let me just brief it, right? We understood about what we understood is we understood about the test method, right? How it works and all, the signature of it. We understood about the hooks which are applied in Playwright, right? And we also saw this worker info, right? how the worker index and parallel index gets assigned to a worker. And if you want access it to them, how do you access? Okay. There are something called describe blocks, right? Describe is a way to group your test cases. Okay. We'll see it once we need it. Otherwise, you can ignore it. And there are other things. Okay. We'll see all of this afterwards, maybe tomorrow. Okay. Right. So I think we are almost on the completion of all this part also. And maybe tomorrow itself we'll start the automation part. Okay. Any
Okay.
queries? Anything? Anyone as of now?
No queries. Okay.
No.
Okay, great. Okay, please go back and do practice about this test part. You should be very clear, like what is the nomenclature, what is the method signature here. So tomorrow, once I start writing the code, it should be very easy for you to understand at least on that part. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let's wrap it up for today. We'll meet tomorrow. Okay. Have a nice day.
Yes. Thank you, Akhil. Have a nice
Thank you.
day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.